Well, good morning, everybody. Once again, we're here gathered together to learn stuff and to have some fellowship and to grow, share life together. Let me get the screen shared so we can kind of take off and use that framework to help us along, and we will rock on. So, we are moving, well, back up a little bit. I'm traveling again today, so this is another pre recorded session. So, as we speak, I should be somewhere between Anchorage and Nashville, Tennessee. So heading back from a week of Alaska with my sons. Next week I'll probably be bubbling because I'm so excited about this trip now. We've been praying for it for so long that I'm really excited. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. That's why you're getting a pre-recorded version. But let's start off as we do with just kind of reviewing and having a chat about any insights, disagreements, questions, answers, reactions, stuff from last week. And I'll give you about 5 minutes to talk amongst yourselves while I act like I'm a quiet little mouse in the corner. Actually, I won't be a mouse in the corner because I won't hear a thing. Okay, hope you had a good chat there, but I want to also talk about your applications, things that you've specifically put in place. I'm guessing that you talked about some of that a little bit already. Let's take another 5 minutes and kind of go through the applications, things that you've actually put in motion for yourself, and how that's worked out for you. Another 5 minutes, talk about that. All right, we're back. Hope you had some lively discussion there. I'd be interested in some feedback on how these on your own discussions have gone and how it's worked for you, but we'll get to that later. So this is the second module. We spent the first few weeks talking about what the job of a manager is, anybody in a leadership or a forefront position in an organization, what that job is, some basic keys to understanding what you're there for, what you're dealing with, and how to do your job. So now we have some idea about what our profession's all about. Now we can move into understanding what we do with the organization, because different organizations need to be managed very differently. You can have the same type of thing, company, same kind of organization doing the same kind of thing, but in a different place, and you can't manage them the same. You can't operate in the same. You can have the same thing in the same place with different people, and you can't quite do them the same. You can have the same thing with a slightly different mission or vision in the same place with similar people, but still you have to do them differently. So that's all alignment kinds of issues. A key question for this section is, what difference does what I do and how I do make? What difference does what I do and how I do it make? If I manage my company this way with my personality and so forth, I can get focused on the wrong kinds of things. But we need to get back to alignment to make sure that everything is fitting together the way it needs to be, and we're doing things in the way that makes our kind of organization work the best it can. And of course, that makes life a lot easier for you and me, right? So again, organizations are systems, a bunch of parts put together to do something for other people. Our purpose is to create and keep customers or delight our customers. Everyone does it differently, and with the different kinds of ministry organizations that you've been a part of, or organizations more broadly speaking, companies, uh, clubs, schools, whatever. If, as much as you've been parts of different organizations, even if they're doing the same kinds of things, they're going to do it differently. Okay, so as far as how we can do things from a big picture perspective as an organization, in a business mentality, there are 6 different ways we go about doing it. They're called competitive advantages. How do I operate my company in such a way as I've got an advantage over other companies doing the same things? Because it's a competitive world, and if I don't compete, then I'm out of business. I go home and get fat and lazy. So I can't do that. We've got to have some advantage that allows us to keep surviving and thriving and living in the world that I've chosen to do my work in. Okay. And so the 6 different things companies can do. They can do it faster, fast service, fast product, can get things out quickly. We can do it cheaper. Okay, that's the Walmart kind of a thing, or the low end kinds of things that we buy, low end clothing and things that are cheaper. We can do it better quality. Okay, that's the high end kinds of things. We can offer better service. Many service organizations like banks, insurance companies, auto sales, all those kinds of things, they offer a service, so we can offer better service. Is another way to do that. We can give them something new. Apple has made its mark by providing things new. Interestingly, Apple has not really done anything new in many years. They've made things smaller. They made them bigger. They've sort of made them be able to do more things, but they don't really have anything new in quite a long time. And so they've kind of changed their model from something new to kind of keeping on doing the same old thing. Or we can be a responsible citizen. We can do things that don't detract from the environment. We can do things that contribute to our local communities. Um, blood drives, Red Cross, uh, providing community services, things like that. Any kind of thing we can do that make us a responsible citizen is another way that we can have a competitive advantage. That last one, by the way, is really kind of a new one on the horizon over the last 20 years or so, maybe 30. So now those are the business pictures of it. What about from a ministry mentality? Okay, there are some comparisons. We can kind of make some connections in terms of things that we do on a daily basis to what businesses do on a daily basis. That helps us to understand a little better what we're doing. Okay, so we want to do something faster. The street evangelism is very much like that. You go to one, you go to one, you go to one, you just keep moving quickly. You don't stop and get involved in this long conversation. You don't try to preach to them. You don't try to rationalize things to them. It's let's keep moving. Let's talk to as many people as we possibly can. Okay, so we're doing it faster. We can do it cheaper. We can have small crusades where we go in on the cheap. We put it together, whatever kind of facilities we're using, and we just kind of go in on a bare bones kind of a budget. Okay. Better might be like a big conference, like some big conferences that Kenneth Copeland puts on, for example, or maybe the Youth Week at River Church, where they're trying to do something bigger and better that really attracts and draws people and makes the mark of if this is really the best that you can get. Service, uh, an established pastor in a congregation that's been there quite a while, when just providing shepherding to the local congregation in a variety of ways. They may have elder services, they may have bus ministries, they may have counseling ministries, and a variety of different things they do to provide services to a local congregation. Okay, something new. Evangelical ministries are often trying to find something new to do, some new twists, some different way to kind of hook people's attention and draw them in. Uh, Evangelists are kind of like salespeople. They have a capacity to make a quick connection with people. That's what makes them evangelists, being able to make that quick connection with people and get people to listen and to hear what they've got to do, or what they're, in a way, in a sense, trying to sell. So but in order to do that regularly, in order to keep in the forefront of that, you sometimes being a little creative can help. Now there are times when you're not creative. Again, street evangelism, you're not doing something new. You're doing it faster. Okay, but in a big ministry, that when you're going from place to place, for a lot of, like an itinerant evangelist, for example, then that's how you make your living, is itinerant evangelism. Then like Yana, then maybe some new kinds of things. She's got her pattern pretty well set, but at some point she might try some new and different kinds of things. Um, Daniel McGee, who does a lot of evangelizing in the Gulf Coast of Alabama and Mississippi, always coming up with some new ideas. I mean, it's just crazy to watch how many different kinds of new things he does. The guy is just a rock star for evangelism, just a high energy kind of a guy. But fishing tournaments, ministering to the poor, uh, ministering to the downtrodden, a church plant, all kinds of ways that they're consistently trying to find, how can I reach people? How can I reach this audience? How can I reach that audience that we haven't really tapped into before? Okay. Another thing is a responsible citizen, just good members of the community, good citizens in our community, providing the food services. A great example of that, and the rehabs. Maybe if you have a prison ministry kind of things that we're doing as just being a good citizen. Some churches will go out and have, do something nice for the community. They'll have a cleanup day, sponsor a civic event, uh, just to say we're here, we love our community, and we want to support it any way we can. So churches have competitive, ministries have competitive advantages as well, and they all require a different mentality for managing. So let's take a look at that. That means there are different ways to manage them to get what we need. It's not always the same for all of them, but many times we can kind of categorize them according to these 6 different approaches. Okay, and we can break it down into 2 different things that we need to operate our organizations to achieve either of these 2 different things. One is efficiency. If we want to do it faster, we need to be efficient. We can't waste time if we want to be faster. We've got to be everything's got to click, everything's got to fit together, and cheaper, the same kind of thing. In order to provide things on the cheap, we've got to be efficient. We can't waste time on going out of the way for this. We can't waste time, money on doing that. We've got to keep it down. Okay, we need to be very efficient with our resources. If we want to do something better than other people, we need to be flexible, because in order to do it better, we've got to be constantly adapting to whoever we're doing it for. Okay, what do they want now? What are the people needing now in this situation? How do we elevate it and adapt to various conditions so that we can provide the best thing for them. New technologies, new structures, new approaches, new models for it, new uh, um, ways to execute a project. Those kinds of things. Service again needs to be flexible because service demands are always changing. You always got to adapt to the services people need, and that's always going to change because any two people that come in, they come in the door with different kind of needs. If you're doing it faster or cheaper, you don't care. You this is what we got. Here you go. So we're being efficient for service, and then you got to adapt and customize it for your different for the different people you're touching. Okay, innovation also needs to be flexible. Okay, now if you're flexible, you're not going to be very efficient. Okay, and I think we can see that pretty easily. If it's a responsible thing, then you've got to figure out what it is exactly that we're doing and whether it needs to be flexible, efficient, or both. And it's really honestly hard to be both. There are some new ways organizations, companies are doing things that can be flexible and efficient. Those are usually computer guided programs, program production, but still it's hard to do both. It's a pretty tough thing. So we need to pick what is it that we're doing, what model, what objective, whether it's flexibility or efficiency, fits or aligns with who we are and what we're doing. Okay. We need to adapt our management approach to fit the kinds of work we do. We must fit what our customers want. Okay. That's part of alignment, everything working together. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on. There's more to come about that. Another key issue is the industry we're in. Now, again, we're taking some corporate ideas and sort of recasting them from ministry mentality. So we'll step into the corporate mentality first, see how that works, and then figure out, okay, now how do we make it work for us and what we're doing? Okay. So the industry we're in makes a difference. And the market that the people we're serving make a difference. Okay, we talked about that a little bit. You know, how you minister to people in one area of town is not going to be the same as you might use in another area of town. You know, if you go into the high end neighborhoods, walking up and down the streets to try to talk to people, probably is not going to be very successful because there's just nobody around. You know, they're all in their cars and going places, not paying attention to people walking up and down the streets, for example. So some examples of different industries, agriculture, mining, and you can just stop and think really easily about the difference in what the cultures of these different kind of companies are, what the nature of the work is, the technologies that they use, the machinery, the equipment, uh, whole different model for how they're going to go about doing their business. Agriculture, mining, utilities like water and electricity and those kinds of things, construction industry, light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing, cars, trucks, buses, trains, and airplanes and things like that. Light manufacturing, furniture, those kinds of things. Wholesale, kind of middleman in the process, operate very differently from retail. Retail is very end consumer oriented, so you've got to figure out how to approach the end consumers. Whereas wholesale, you're trying to provide things. Uh, Delivery, for example, delivery and cost is really going to be the wholesale thing. So retail is going to have a lot more to do with your sales and your marketing. Transportation industry, banking and insurance and science. Science is kind of an interesting thing uh, because honestly, for a lot of ministries and churches and religious type people, I don't want to use that term too negatively. But from a religious or a church or a Christian mentality, sometimes people just hate the word science because they think science has to do with people trying to live without God. But honestly, science is just knowing things. Science is all about how do I know something? How do I? And so we've got different ways we do that. Science is just taking the evidence that we have and putting that together in a way to say this is what I know. Okay. And I have a lot of training in social sciences. I was in graduate school. It was all about the social sciences. So I'm a social scientist by training. And so what I've learned to do then is tell the difference between what's truth and what's speculation. Okay, so because a lot of people get upset about science because they're talking about speculation and their interpretations of things. And so, yeah, scientists are just a bunch of evolutionary biologists that don't believe in God. Well, that's really not true. Not at all. As a matter of fact, uh, mathematicians and physicists are really a lot more likely to believe in God than a lot of other people are, because they can't explain things without a divine presence. Um, Science. So, what I learned about science is that it's not really the information that you have that's the problem; it's how people interpret it, how people dig up the information, how they interpret that. Actually, when I went to my graduate program and realized how important science was in that environment, I made a decision, and I said, "Okay, I don't believe personally, I don't believe there should be any difference between pure science and my faith. If there's a place where they rub, where they don't really fit together, one or the other needs to be adjusted." Okay, one or the other. Either the science is incorrect, and honestly, I've never found any indication, any situation where a pure scientific approach to something went against my faith. I've made some adjustments with my faith. And I said, it doesn't really make sense. I believe this for a long time, but that's I need to twist that a little bit. I need to get clean with that, and it's actually strengthened my faith to get rid of some fuzzy stuff. Okay, so anyway, just my little spouting on science or education, food services. The food service industry is a very different industry from public administration, education, or any of the others. Okay, and entertainment. These are some of the key industries we find in the business world. Do we have some ministry equivalents to these or comparisons? Absolutely. I wouldn't throw up if I didn't, right? So, what is some of the key difference in how they're managed? Agriculture is managed very differently from food services. You know, the agriculture, you're not worried about washing your hands and food, food safety is to the extent that people aren't putting it directly into their bodies. Mining, very different from education. Get out here and get the work done in a noisy, heavy, dirty environment versus the clean, sterile environment we try to have for an education. No distractions. So anyway, very different kinds of things. Some ministry examples. Agriculture, pretty well straight across in some ways, because honestly, I think that the agriculture is going to be a more and more important thing for the Christian communities to get involved in. There's more and more situations where our food supply is getting choked, and grocery costs have gone up in the United States a lot over the last few years, and I don't know how it is there, but I suspect it's similar. So agriculture is something that I think we can carry straight across. Mining, a similar thing in mining is going to be the inner city gangs, where it's just a rough, coarse environment, and you've got to be careful. Utilities, the ministry resources that we use, the sound systems, the power systems, and all those different kind of resources or utilities kinds of things. Construction is kind of like an apostolic plant where there's a new church plant, a new ministry plant somewhere, an apostolic overseer who's building something. Paul called himself a wise master builder, and so he understood the building idea, the construction idea, and he applied those principles to building people. Okay, light manufacturing, a small church, a small congregation; heavy manufacturing, a large congregation, a mega church with thousands of people involved, where you've got hundreds of people on the ministry staff trying to take care of all the things that needs. Wholesale is kind of like publishing ministries. Okay, retail, again, like I said a while ago, retail is kind of like evangelism. It's very similar to evangelism in a lot of ways, making contact and touching people where they are, and say, "I've got something that I think you might like." Okay, transportation, elder services, not elders in the church, but to older people. Okay, services to older people, and actually we provide transportation sometimes, but kind of taking things from point A to point B and providing those kinds of needs for people. Banking, similar to church financing, insurance, science, education. Those really go straight across into ministries, very much straight across into ministries. Uh, again, science, you got to be careful that you're actually paying attention to what it actually says, that what the information actually can be telling you instead of somebody else's interpretation. A lot of times we find that the information people dig up is slanted based on how they dug it up. We know that, for example, in polling, who you poll when they have political polls, uh, where they take those polls from, it affects the outcome of the poll. And so, how we gather that information that the scientists use um, has a lot to do with it. So we're careful. I mean, how do you know? Science basically asks the question, how do you know? Education, straight across food services. Again, a straight across kind of a deal. Churches do food services. Churches feed flocks too. So that's another kind of deal. But those are still different kinds of mentalities. Public administrations, a lot of times there are liaisons. The ministries will provide liaisons between the ministry and the public sector. Uh, Rodney Howard Brown and River Church have a an attorney on staff. Really works hard to identify legal issues and bring those out and goes to bat for the church and actually spent a lot of time in the state capitol a couple of months ago dealing with some state laws that were coming up that were just atrocious. And when some of the people found out, she went up there and she, like a bulldog, they found out what was going on and said, "Yeah, this is a really bad idea to begin with. I'm not sure why they pushed this through. We're trying to push it, but yeah, let's trash it." And entertainment, very similar things. Okay, and we have entertainment kinds of things. There are a lot of Christian musicians who aren't there to try to lead worship. They're there just to try to provide an environment, a day to day kind of an environment. So, entertainment is great for congregations, for ministries as well. One of the bands I stumbled across a few years ago, I really love their music and stuff. It's very kind of contemporary stuff. Uh, Not big on contemporary necessarily, but it's I really enjoy it. And I realize they're not here to lead me into worship. They're not here to provide a thanksgiving and praise kind of an atmosphere. They're here just to kind of entertain and demonstrate God's grace and show what a great God we have, and show what a great way that music can touch people in an uplifting and positive way. So, entertainment's got a place, I think, in ministries as well. Some other kinds of considerations in these different industries, in these different kind of ministry areas and things that affect how we're going to manage the safety considerations. Mining requires a lot more safety focus than insurance, for example. Equipment cost over the capital investment, how much money we have to spend. A big church requires a lot of capital investment. They need buildings, buses, sound systems, like that. Uh, Reinhard Bonnke's capital investment in equipment, the sound system we talked about last week or a couple of weeks ago, huge investment. That thing was inordinately expensive, and other kinds of things. I mean, the cost for him to put on an evangelistic campaign was huge. A lot of it was equipment costs and transportation, trucks and buses, and all the kind of things that they had to spend on. How much customer contact is there? How much time do we spend directly connecting to the people we serve? Okay. Training and education requirements. Some require a lot of training. Some don't require so much. Some is good at the hands-on training. Some is good for like we're doing with group level discussions and conversations. The personality of the employees, and that kind of goes into cultures as well and subcultures and the region that you live in. Uh, we talked some about football a couple of weeks ago, and how strong that is as part of the culture in the southeastern United States. And so that really kind of fits into how churches do business too, is those different uh, local cultures and regional cultures. And I think you guys can probably connect with that, coming from different kinds of cultural backgrounds, that you're really going to touch people from different cultural backgrounds in different ways. Self-directed versus machine-directed means I'm doing the work myself, like I'm like a carpenter versus an assembly line worker. Formal policy and procedure. The bigger it is, and the more you focus on efficiency, the more you need to focus on formal policies and procedures, and a host of other kinds of things too. Where it is, the distribution needs. When I lived in Mobile, Alabama for several years, there's a lot of water there, and it's kind of so there's a hub for distribution. Okay, so there was a lot of shipping that went in and out of there historically, but because of a lot of rivers and lakes and things around that area, it was a great place to build chemical plants and uh, timber processing, things like that. So those things kind of fit really well there. Uh, Geography, some places just don't really doing good in some geographic regions, and others do very well in others. So there's a lot of different factors, a lot of different things that go into how we're going to manage things based upon and there are others as well. This is just a sample. Okay, so what kinds of things are important or helpful where you are now compared to other places? What's different about where you are right now doing the things you do versus when you may have done similar things in the past or in different places? And as you've traveled and visited with other congregations, you've seen other pastors do things differently. They have their own mark, their own brand on things. And then you start to go back and say, okay, why are they different? Some of it's the personality and the character of the leadership, but some of it's got to do with the congregation. Some of it's got to do with the resources that they have to work with. How much cash do they actually process? The wealthy areas or the poorer area. What about languages and things? It's interesting because as different languages make us think differently. The structure of a language causes our minds to operate in a way that language structure tells us that must operate in. Okay, and so that's why sometimes it's easier to communicate in one language versus another. Uh, but language differences make us think differently, and so trying to communicate just straight translations a lot of times really don't work because you're not really capturing a word for word meaning. You're trying to capture different ideas and different ways of thinking and understanding. So all those things really kind of affect what we're doing. So you can write down some takeaways. What are some things, some thoughts, impressions, ideas, disagreements? We're setting the stage this week to understand more about differences in organizations, okay, and where they do what they do and how they do it, okay, and how that might affect the decisions that we make and how to carry that out. Okay. So, any thoughts, impressions, ideas, things you agree or disagree on? If you disagree or don't get some, by all means, feel free to speak it up. I'm, I don't have any problem with that. Iron sharpens iron, so sharpen one another. This is for you. Again, pick one thing you can actually apply over the next week. What exactly will you do? Make it simple and specific. You guys have heard this a lot, right? You know the drill here, but I really want to keep pushing on because we learn more by doing than by hearing. Okay, we learn more by doing something than by just listening and thinking. Listening and thinking are great. I love doing that. Still, at some point you gotta put the rubber on the road. Okay, you got to put the car in gear and hit the gas and move. So just sitting in a simulator doesn't work all the time. You're really good in a simulator, but at some point you got to get out and make the car go. All right. Replay videos posted in YouTube channel, the Diamond Management channel, and the Ignite Management playlist. Uh, Good to be with you guys again. God bless you. Have a great week. Without you guys having an opportunity to go back and forth, these get cut a little short, and I'm a little disappointed in that. Hopefully, you guys will take some time amongst yourselves and have some conversations and sort of explore some different ideas, different perspectives, different thoughts, different agreements, disagreements, and whatever. Just sort of explore them together. We might be able to do were we live versus. God bless you. Have a great week, and I should be live again next week. Everything should be back in order and cooking and everything cooking with gas again. Love you guys.